My name is Lucia Sanchez. I'm from Mexico City. I was about 13 years old. I had met my ex-husband. I was really a young girl. He was about 21 years old, and I was really young. And the first day we went out, that's the first day I experienced that. And so I I kind of, I feel like I kind of got trapped into that relationship because being that I was so young, and my mom, was here from Mexico too as well at that time, but she was working a lot, and I used to watch my brothers, and so I basically was kind of like my own adult since I took care of my brothers, and she was at work, so I left, and that night when I went out with that guy, that that first time, then he busted my nose. He backhanded my face because he wanted me to do some cocaine, and so I did. And then after that, when my mom would be at work, he would pull up and come and pick me up, and I was so afraid, but I never told my mom. I was just so scared, so I would just get in the car with them. And then the days and the weeks went by, and every time I left with him, he would make me do that cocaine, and that's the first time I ever saw drugs in my life. But after not too long after that, then I got addicted to it right away because he would give it to me every day, and so my body got addicted to it. Then, so after that, when he would come and get me, it really didn't bother me no more because my body, I think, was wanting that cocaine. It took me a long time to understand that after I grew up, and I took a look at that, what I experienced. Then I lasted about 15 to 16 years, I think, with him, and I think it was over the drugs, and that's how I experienced my first experience with violence with somebody. And I don't even think that was a relationship. I think that I was so scared that I kind of fell into it, and then because of the addiction, how he got me addicted to it, to where I wanted to go, even though I was scared. I wanted to go, but I think at that point I didn't care about the violence anymore because my body had got addicted to the drug, and I wanted it. I didn't understand, so I used to cry a lot, and the more I cried, the more he became abusive and put me down and just try to manipulate my mind. And then I think I probably felt confused because after he would abuse me and physically, like rape me and do what he wanted with me, I don't know, I didn't feel nothing. I always felt so numb. My the cops used to come out to the house, but only because by then my oldest daughter was like 5 years old already, between 5 and 7, and she started calling 911 herself because being that he was a drug dealer, I just learned the way I was raised with him and his people. It's like, don't ever call the cops, and that world of the cops and CPS and all that stuff, I didn't even know all that existed until later on in the relationship when my son was born addicted to cocaine. My son was born because my first daughter, she wasn't, but my son, my second one, was born full-blown cocaine baby. And so my first experience with the officer that came out one day, she had my daughter had called and she had came, but he had took off already. And so for some reason that officer came back the next morning. I don't know, because she came in the evening when all this was going on, and he had took off and they didn't find him. And I told her, that we were just wrestling, that nothing was going on, but she could see it, I guess, in my eyes. And I think I probably just looked so bad at that point that for some reason she decided to come back the next morning, early in the morning, like around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I think she was probably getting off shift or something, and she knocks on the door, and he had came back in the middle of the night. And you know what? I'm so glad that she came, because at that moment he was getting ready, to rape me and do all his, dirty shit that he used to like to do to me. And I remember her knocking, and I told him, like, well, somebody's at the door. And I looked out the window. I got up off the bed and I looked out the window, and I seen that it was an officer. And I told him, it's the cops. And so he's like, don't answer it. And I try not to answer it, but the officer starts telling me, you know, I know you're in there, you know, I'm worried about your safety. I'm going to have to call the fire department if you don't open the door, you know, to make sure that you're okay. So I opened the door anyways. I got up and I opened the door and I told him I have to open the door. And so I opened the door and the officer told me to come outside, outside on my porch. And I did. And she looked at me and she goes, you know what? She goes, I know that you can't help yourself right now. She goes, and I know that he's in there. And she goes, is he here? And I just nodded my head and I said, yes. And she goes, you know what? I'm going to do you a favor today. And she goes, I hope that, you know, one day, you know, you can help yourself, but at least I'm going to try to help you today at this moment. Throughout those years, every time I try to hide from him and leave with my kids, everybody that I thought that was my friend, he would pay them drugs and money to tell him where I was. And so it got harder and harder throughout the years. And so that is why when I walked away that day, I had to leave by myself because I didn't know where I was going to go. And even if I did get a hotel, he always found a way to find me, and he did. But that at that time when that happened, she goes, you know what? She goes, you could come and stay with me. She goes, I live by myself. She goes, I don't have no kids. She goes, you could bring your kids there. And so we went to her house and she had a little apartment. I looked around and she goes, you could stay here. She goes, let me try to help you. And so I'm like, okay, I go, I need a rest. I go, my heart hurts still. So I did. We went to the women's center and I talked to one of the ladies there and she filled out the paperwork. She asked me questions like you. And she asked me, I think, what are the 3 or 5 worst things that he had ever done to me in all those years. And I told her, and she said, okay, you know, I'm going to send this to the court. It's going to take a couple of days for it to come. She goes, and I'm pretty sure the judge will give you your kids. And I'm like, okay. So it seemed like an eternity. But, you know, the day came on that Friday where I was able to pick up the papers from the courthouse. And the judge had signed it and stamped it and said, you know, call it when you get these. She wrote on the bottom, when you receive these papers, she goes, call the police department and get a standby. She goes, do not approach that house by yourself. She goes, and they will get your kids out of there. And that's how I got my kids and I went on my way. And ever since then, I never looked back. I still had to deal with them in court through the child, trying to get child custody, but that was my breaking point right there, where I was able to go. And it's been a long time, but I'm here today. Not be judgmental on, you know, on people, you know, that are in that way, because it's so easy for people to say, hey, you know what? Why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? But everybody is a different individual. Just to not be judgmental and to be understanding and don't be judgmental, you know, because I see a lot of that on like posts on the social media. Oh, why don't you just leave? It's easier said than done, because sometimes people don't have the resources, you know, to go, or sometimes they don't have, you know, the information to know that there's places out there like you know, like me, you know, I didn't know that you guys existed. I didn't know that even CPS existed, you know, I didn't know none of that. And so just not to, you know, be judgmental and to try to be understanding. And if they see somebody getting hurt, then just call the police, because I know a lot of people are not going to get involved, but, you know, call the police from a distance and, you know, be like, hey, there's somebody, you know, getting beat up over here, or I feel like this is going on in this house, you know, with these children and this woman or this man as well. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, men get abused too. And to speak, you know, and to, they never know, that phone call might save that person's life without them even knowing.